Hey, welcome back to another segment of Let's Shut Up and Eat. Today we're gonna make pasta and meatballs. For today's meatball recipe, we're gonna need 2 pounds of ground chuck, 4 slightly beaten eggs, 1 cup of Romano cheese, 2 cups of breadcrumbs, and 3 sausage links, casings removed. Of course, it wouldn't be an Italian meatball if we didn't add a couple crushed garlic cloves. All right, well, let's get into making these meatballs, okay? So I figured out a while back that when I use sausage, you can use pork or veal. I just choose to use sausage because it's already flavored pork. It has a nice fat content in it. It's gonna keep your meatballs nice and moist, but it gets stuck together because of the fat and the way it's in the casing. So what I figured out is put the eggs in the bowl first, and then I'm just gonna use my hands because best utensil is your hands for this job. So you're just gonna mix it around and you're just gonna squish it around and you're gonna break up all that sausage, so when I put the ground chuck in, it's gonna go through the ground beef nice and evenly. So every meatball has a little bit of sausage in there. You don't want them to taste like sausage, but you want them to have a little bit of the flavor of it. All right, so now that I mixed it up, I'm gonna add the ground chuck. Then I'm gonna add the Romano cheese. Then I'm gonna add some crushed garlic. And lastly, I'm gonna add the breadcrumbs. All right, now we're gonna portion out some meatballs. I like to go a little bit bigger than a golf ball, but size is completely up to you, so make them as big or as small as you like. So I take a little bit like this, and I just gently, I don't smash, I just gently roll them, that. Try to make them all the same size. Quickly form a few here. I absolutely love this meatball recipe. It's taken me quite a few years to come up with, but I think I've hit the mark on everything, the texture, the taste, and the feel of it. If you love meatballs, please give this a try. You won't be disappointed. Okay, so in here I have 3 tablespoons of olive oil, medium diced onion, yellow onion, 3 garlic cloves crushed and minced, okay? So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna saute this up a little bit until it gets translucent. It only takes about 2 to 3 minutes. So that's been about 2 or 3 minutes. Now we're gonna add a little bit of tomato paste. And now what I did here is, like you see, is like I took both ends, right? Because it's very hard to have a utensil that's gonna fit in there. So watch what I do here. You push it. Careful not to cut yourself. Scrape it off. Push it down. Empty. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cook this tomato paste just so it gets a little darker, a little mahogany color. What you want to do now, and in each step as we go along, we're going to add a little bit of salt and pepper to it. So we don't have to add it all at the end. A couple cracks. Just gonna cook it for just a little bit longer. I'm gonna add chicken stock to the tomato paste. I'm gonna add just a little bit right now just to thin out the tomato paste, but I'm gonna reserve some for the end. I'll show you in a second what I'm gonna do with it. All right, so that seems about good. And I'm gonna just cook this for another 30 seconds to a minute with a little bit of more salt, just a little bit. So while this is cooking, you'll notice that I don't have any sugar out. I do not add sugar to my sauce. And some will find that to be sacrilegious. I stay away from sugar, but feel free if you want to use a pinch, just a pinch, because remember, if you put too much in, you can't do anything about it. Now you have a sweet sauce, and sauce isn't supposed to be sweet, it's supposed to be savory. With all the love in the world, please stop putting so much sugar in your sauce. I got that cooked down. Now I'm going to add 2 28-ounce cans of crushed tomatoes. If you pour it on a spoon, I saw someone do that. If you pour it on a spoon, it doesn't splatter as much. All right, so I got the crushed tomatoes in, and I told you I reserved a little bit of this because I'm gonna see all that tomato in there. Because you want the stock anyway, so you might as well get all the tomatoes you can. So I'm gonna cook this for a little bit. So here I have 2 sprigs of rosemary and 6 sprigs of fresh thyme. And I have it tied up like that because I'm gonna pull it out at the end. And I drop that in, stir it up. Here I have 2 teaspoons of dry oregano. And lastly, I have 3 bay leaves. All right, so I'm going to bring this up to a boil, and then I'm going to put a few of my meatballs in here. This will hold maybe about 6 or 7 of the meatballs, and then I'm going to bake off the rest. My mom always put her meatballs in her sauce, so that's how I do it, because I like the texture of the meatball, the way it comes out, and I also like the fact that all the flavors from the meatballs go into the sauce. So I'm going to let that go. Bring that up to a simmer. Before I put the meatballs in, I want it up to a nice simmer before we put them in, because then the temperature is going to drop down, so we don't want it to drop down, and it's going to take way too long to come back up to temperature. All right, as you can see, it's coming up to a simmer. You see the bubbles starting to form here. And the tip of the day is this, how not to burn your sauce. So when it comes up to the simmer, and I add the meatballs and it comes back up to the temperature I want it, I'm gonna take the pan, I'm gonna put it into the frying pan. What this does is it disperses the heat from the bottom of this pan, so just by chance, if you forget about it, you're not gonna scorch your sauce. And if you do end up scorching your sauce and it comes up to a boil and it's been going for a very long time, the last thing you wanna do is to stir it. Once you stir it, the sauce is completely ruined because you're gonna get all those charred bits in it and it's not gonna taste the same, okay? So now it's coming up to the temperature that I like, and I'm gonna turn it up a little bit. I'm gonna grab my meatballs. Like I said, I'm not gonna overcrowd the pan, so I'm only gonna add about 7 to here. So you just drop them in. 4, 5, 6, 7. Then you just wanna stir them in. It's making my mouth water. Anytime I see spaghetti and meatballs, my mouth starts to water immediately. I'm getting very excited. I want this to be done pretty quickly, but once we bring it up to a simmer again, and I put it into the pan, you're gonna want it to at least simmer for another hour or so to make sure the meatballs are completely cooked through. The sauce is done after 20, 30 minutes. It's a very simple sauce, very basic, not a lot of ingredients. I keep it very simple. So now we got it up to a simmer. I'm gonna take the pan, place it in this one, and I'm gonna slide it back over like that. And there we have it. So in about an hour, we're gonna plate this up, and then I'm gonna be done talking, and it's time to let's shut up and eat. While we were waiting, I went ahead and I made some pasta, some spaghetti. It's my favorite pasta. And I also cooked off these meatballs in the oven at 375 for about a half hour to 45 minutes. Here we go. We're going to start plating this up. I'm going to use the meatballs from the sauce. I'm going to take a few ladles of the sauce. Here, get my spoon out of there. Put that in. What I'm doing here is I'm heating up the pasta through, again, with some sauce, so the pasta will suck in the sauce. And then as I plate it, I'm going to ladle a little bit more sauce on with the meatballs. So I'm just going to cook this for another about 30 seconds or so. And then we're going to be ready to plate up. All right, now it's time to plate up. The best tool for the job, kitchen tongs. All right, I don't get fancy with this. A lot of people twist it around, make it high. You know what? Pile it on your plate. Try not to make a mess, obviously, because you want a nice presentation. But you put a little pasta down, nice ladle of sauce. That. For myself, I enjoy having 2 meatballs. There it is, everyone, the final product. Pasta with my favorite meatballs. I hope you enjoyed this segment. I've done enough talking for the day, so let's shut up and eat.